Hello everybody, this is Hammer Striker here. Today I've got the latest from Smith Wesson, the SD9 2.0. Please don't forget to check out our website. Go to our affiliates page. You'll find discount codes for things like Mantis X and Core belts, linked to that cool little bore light that we use for lighting up the barrels. Use those links. It will often save you money, never will cost you any additional money, and helps the channel. And please consider supporting the channel on Player, formerly Utreon, where we can do some types of videos that are no longer allowed on YouTube. This gun is an evolution of the SDVE series. This particular one is in 9mm. The original series also had 40 cal. I don't know if they're going to do 40 or not in this, but right now it's the SD9. And they've made some ergonomic changes, price changes, and a few other things, but a lot of things are still similar. First off, you're going to notice the slide. If you're familiar with the VE, it had kind of a shallower, square serrations. And the slide on this one has deeper, more rounded serrations. So that's one of the changes. One of the other changes they made relates to the magazines. Not the capacity. They're still 16 round magazines, but you only get one of them instead of getting two. That's a change they've made. 2-slot Picatinny rail. That was that way before. And dimensionally, the gun is still the same dimensions. It's 7.2 inches front to back, has a 4-inch barrel with conventional rifling. It's 5.5 inches tall with the flush magazine, and it is 1.29 inches thick. So this is definitely targeting the concealed carry market. Now, one of the things, if you saw our first look, I mentioned that this had lost a significant amount of weight. And that turned out not to be accurate because, unfortunately, I based my information on the manufacturer's website specs. You'd figure going to the manufacturer's website, you'd get accurate specs. But if you go to the SD9VE, the standard capacity model, it lists it as 36 ounces, like 36.56. This gun, as I'm sitting here, is 22.7. So it sounded like it had lost a significant amount of weight. I happened to be at a local gun store when I took this to the range, and they had an SD9VE, and I picked it up and handled it. I didn't have the ability to weigh it, but I could tell just from holding on to it that there's no way that gun weighs 36 ounces. A third-party website listed the weight of this as 22.7 of the VE, which is the same as this one. So no, there hasn't really been any weight loss. And interestingly enough, as I clicked around the different variants of it on Smith Wesson's website, I got different weights, most of them focusing around the 22.7 something. Only a couple places did I find that 36 ounce. So no weight loss. It's about the same. But if you look at it, 22.7 ounces is about consistent with a gun this size. So it's not any heavier or lighter than any of the others. It does have nice 3-dot sights, easy to see. They are dovetailed so that you can replace them. There is serrations on the top to cut down glare, but there is no optics-ready version of this, at least at the moment, unlike a lot of manufacturers that as they refresh their lines, even Smith Wesson has gone optics-ready on a lot of the M&P series. This one is not optics-ready. They may change that in the future, but as of this making, it's not. The thing that's probably the most significant they changed is the trigger. So the trigger is a flatty trigger. They call it the flat face self-defense trigger. It does have the inertial toggle for drop protection. Reasonable take-up. And then, again, there's like this false take-up, and then a little more, and then actually a nice crisp break. The reset is relatively short, but it is basically almost all the way out. You could hear it. There was a noticeable click. And then, again, a little bit of take-up, another kind of a false wall, and then a short, crisp break. So I had commented in the first look that the trigger was good, but it's not great. At the range, the trigger did its job, but it was a little interesting trying to get used to, okay, exactly when is this going to break? So I've pulled in on it. Of course, trying to do tight group, bullseye type shooting. I pulled in on it. Okay, it didn't break yet. Oh, that's right. There's a little bit more and then a little bit more. So I still say the trigger is a decent trigger, and it's better than the predecessor. I did try the trigger on the SD9VE that they had there, and this is definitely an improvement over that. But this trigger is definitely more vague than the M&P 2.0 series. The regular M&P 2.0 series has a more defined, kind of a more conventional trigger. Would I say the trigger is bad? Absolutely not. It's a decent trigger. You're going to have to get used to it. If you're used to something like a Glock or let's say a Springfield XDM that both have very defined triggers, they're different of course, but very defined triggers, you'll have some work to do to get used to it. But they have definitely improved it. It's smoother, it's not as gritty, and it's not as heavy. Ergonomics of the grip haven't changed much, but it is a comfortable grip to hold. No finger grooves. Texture on all the way around it. Nice texture here at the back. And there are no replaceable back straps. And there are no ambi features. So it's a right-hand designed gun. And that's just the way it's designed to work. From a function perspective, with one exception, this was reliable from the first round. It worked perfectly from the first round to the last round. Again, with one exception. The magazine does hold 16. Getting that 16th round in the very first time was a bit of a challenge. It says 15 on this side. If I flip it over, it says 16. The first time we tried to do it with Barney, put a round in the chamber and then put a full magazine in and fire it, it malfunctioned. So it did not properly eject the round that was in the chamber and did not chamber the top round off the magazine. The second time I loaded the magazine to try it again, it was a little easier to load the magazine and it did function correctly. So what I'm going to say with this, if you're going to concealed carry this, of course you're going to want to take a full round, and whether or not you choose a round in the chamber or not, it's up to you. I do a round in the chamber, so I want the gun to work that way. Plan to load and unload the magazine a time or two. That's all. I don't think there's any break-in period you have to go on with, because in that same range session, no cleaning, no other activity with the gun, I simply reloaded the magazine, found it a little easier to get the 16th round in, chambered again, put the full magazine in, and it worked. So from a reliability perspective, I do think this has the potential to be reliable, and from what I know, the original SD9 VE was also a reliable gun. They were very popular and to some extent are. And I did mention there was a pricing change. The MSRP is $349 now, so it's a little bit lower MSRP, but keep in mind it only comes with one magazine. That might actually end up offsetting it. So let's disassemble this critter. Kind of disassemble is very similar to a Glock. You have to pull the trigger, pull back the slide a little bit, pull those tabs, and here's the frame. It's a well-constructed frame. Nice, robust locking blocks at the guides at the front. Nice solid locking block, nice guides at the back, and I'm going to kind of show the fire control group. I'm going to kind of move it around a little bit. Somebody had wanted to see what the fire control group looked like versus the other one. I don't have an original SD9 VE to put a side-by-side comparison, but if you've got an original one and you're wanting to look at it, it kind of gives you an idea of what the new one looks like. And again, they did improve the trigger. It has a wafer-style spring. It's well constructed, nice and solid. Everything on this is well machined and well constructed. If I look at the slide, the machining is clean. There's no tool marks, no chatter. There's a few lightening slots where they've drilled a little bit to lighten it. Has the inertial toggle on the trigger I showed you and the piston drop safety, so this is designed to be drop safe. Pretty well consistent with a striker fired gun. It's got all the same features as most striker fire guns. Well machined and nice looking. The barrel is also well machined and nice looking. I'll show you it's got a kind of a polished ramp, what I like to call machine polished. It's not polished to a mirror finish, but it is polished over being rough. And the rifling is well defined and clean. You'll notice kind of a dark shadow around the tip of the barrel. That's because there's actually a little crown in there. So that shows up as kind of being dark, but it's actually a bit of a target crown recessed in. So it's very well machined and very smooth, but the darkness is just because the light doesn't get in there. And of course it is conventional rifling, as you can see. Reassembly, about the same as disassembling, relatively easy. Put the barrel in. The spring kind of just pops right into place. Make sure it's centered. Line it up on the frame. Slide it, and you're back in business. So overall, I would say it's a well-designed gun. In the refresh, they don't, other than taking away a magazine, they haven't taken away anything that would maybe deter you from going to the new gun. I think the new styling is a little nicer. The roll mark is less pronounced. And these serrations are really easy to get a hold of. The slide's not super heavy, but it's not super light. But it's really easy to get a hold of those serrations. They're deep enough and they don't cut into your hand. They're deep enough that when you grab them, you've got a hold of them. So overall, I think it's a well done effort. I found it easy to shoot well once I kind of got used to the way the trigger works, which again, practice with it, you'll get used to it. It's not a trigger that's bad such that there's no way to get used to it. It will work well. And you'll also know notice there's a bit of bevel here to make it a little easier to holster. So it's, instead of being square and flat at the front, it's beveled a little bit, so it kind of guided into a holster. This is designed primarily as a concealed carry home defense weapon. It's not necessarily designed to be a range toy or a collector item. It's more of a utilitarian tool, but it's a quite nice looking utilitarian tool. Beyond that, if you like our videos, please give us a thumbs up, share, subscribe, click that bell up there to be notified if you do. Check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Player, Rumble. We're pretty much everywhere. And thank you.